You're listening to the Mother to Baby podcast, medications and more during pregnancy and breastfeeding. Ask the experts with your host, genetic counselor and mom of four, Chris Stallman.
Welcome to another episode of the Mother to Baby podcast. My name is Chris Stallman, and I am a mother of four, a genetic counselor, and a teratogen information specialist. What that means is I talk to people about exposures during pregnancy, before pregnancy, while they're breastfeeding, and in cases of adoption. And exposures can be anything. So it could be a virus, it could be a medication, you could be wondering about whether or not you can get your hair dyed. There's a whole range of things that we like to talk about. And we're at a really interesting point in our year where we're thinking about future episodes, and we're going to be recording on a lot of different subjects, but we need your help. We want to know, what are you interested in talking about? What are you interested in hearing about? What are your ideas? So if you have an idea for a podcast, if you want to be on the podcast, we would love to hear from you. So please feel free to contact us by emailing us at contactus@mothertobaby.org. But on to today's show. Today, not only because it's June and Men's Health Month, but also because we get these questions a lot of times, we're going to talk about paternal exposures. So exposures that males can have before pregnancy, during pregnancy, sometimes even after. And so to talk about paternal exposures, we have Mark Bennett Roth. He is a lead teratogen information specialist and co-director for MotherToBaby New York. He's been with the program since 2006 and also serves as the research coordinator. He educates medical providers and the public about risks from reproductive exposures through lectures, and he also participates in state and national conferences. We are excited beyond belief to have him here. Mark, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. It's exciting to try this.
You will fit right in here. One of the reasons that we wanted to talk about this today was because we do get questions about these types of exposures. And, it might not be something that people think about off the top of their head when they think about mother to baby because, mother, baby. But of course, males can have exposures too, and people have questions about them. So this question comes directly from one of our listeners, actually, and they were curious about paternal exposures in general. Is there something that a male could take that would affect either getting pregnant, a pregnancy while it's happening, or have any other kind of effect? So Mark, you're in the hot seat now. What kind of questions does your service get about paternal exposures?
Well, we get quite a few questions about paternal exposures, and they can be related to somebody planning a pregnancy, maybe someone having a medical procedure where they may be concerned about either a procedure or a medication they may be taking that could affect a pregnancy, or some recreational substance that they may be taking, or even a medication that somebody with semen may have that can affect the developing baby during a pregnancy, say if there's exposure to the semen through intercourse during a pregnancy. So we get lots of questions, and there's also a lot of information online that people encounter that raises concern, and so we try to put all that into perspective for them in terms of what the real risks are, or at least what we really know about when it comes to paternal exposures.
And I think that's a really good point that, certainly what we do at Mother to Baby is try and find that, that data, that evidence for what we know. I think it's important to say that, what we know about paternal exposures is not always as much information as we want. And I mean, that's true for other things that we do, of course, in pregnancy and breastfeeding as well. But I feel that, in a lot of cases, there's even less data about exposures that either, partners or sperm donors may have. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, for sure. It's more challenging to study in terms of the effect a paternal exposure can have on a pregnancy. And then we do know, well, at least the vast majority of our experience shows that exposures a man has, if they're going to have an effect on, say, reproduction or pregnancy, they're most likely to affect his ability to father a child. In other words, will it affect his sperm count or his fertility or his ability to actually have sex? So these tend to be the bigger issues when it comes to paternal exposures. And then sometimes when there is information about it, it's not always clear just how meaningful it really is regarding like an actual pregnancy and the outcome of that.
And I think that's a good point too. So I know that a lot of times when I think about exposures, I think about, is it going to make the chances of having a birth defect higher or cause other pregnancy complications? But it seems like when we're thinking about exposures to the sperm, that we're, in a lot of cases, we're really more often focused on the fertility aspect.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's because medications or exposures a man may have are more likely to affect what we call parameters or kind of features of sperm. And that really would be the count, how much, how many sperm, how well they move, and, the shape and structure of them. And all those components really contribute to a sperm to successfully fertilize the egg.
Gotcha. So one of the more common questions that I come across personally is when a male is undergoing or has already had chemotherapy treatment. Is that something that your service gets questions about?
We do. We get questions about that. And there are many different kinds of medications used for treating cancer, as well as all the different kinds of cancer. And some of these medications can affect sperm production, and some may not. Some will affect sperm production or maybe cause some infertility, and that can be temporary, or it may be permanent, or there can, there's perhaps a loss of fertility and then a return of fertility may not be predictable. And so if somebody's, sometimes when somebody's preparing to undergo chemotherapeutic treatment for cancer, sometimes there's a thought about banking sperm if they're thinking about a future pregnancy, not because of any confirmed risk, but just because it's not clear that fertility would come back. And sometimes information about that's more clear when the protocol, the medications that are going to be used are known and identified.
And I bet too, there's a lot of other factors with that, of course. So is there some type of surgical intervention, depending on the exact location? Like if they're removing a tumor, if it's in that prostate area, will that somehow affect fertility later? And I think you're right that with so many medications, there might be some information, it might be different from others. But at the same token, I think it must be, and again, certainly I don't have any personal experience with male cancer, but it seems like one of those things that could be really overwhelming to think about all of these things at once, medication, your life, your health, future children, current children, all these different things.
And then even if there is fertility, then there's the concern of, will this medication contribute to a birth defect if there is a pregnancy? And the reassuring information is, no, we do not have evidence of that. And if a pregnancy is achieved and maintained, we really don't expect an increased risk for birth defects from an exposure to chemotherapy drugs, or really just about any drug as well.
So Mark, in a more general sense, if a male wants to prepare either to partner a pregnancy or if they're going to do sperm donation, what are some tips, some best practices that men can think about while preparing for a potential pregnancy? And that's a lot of P's. I just want to say that I knew that.
Well, tongue twisters are great. Well, I think the overarching idea behind an answer for this, or the answer to this, is just good health and good nutrition and, just taking care of oneself, really, in terms of specific nutrients that are understood to be important for a man's reproductive health is zinc and folate, selenium, vitamin C, these are frequently cited as being important. And then, just a concern about healthy living is really going to do a lot.
So take your vitamins, talk with your provider about exercise, try not to have too many brewskis.
A lot of alcohol can lower, sperm count, and a lot of exposures or recreational substances have been observed to reduce sperm count. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make someone have a harder time creating a baby, because normally, there's always an abnormal amount of sperm in ejaculate, so, but that doesn't mean the fertility is reduced.
So some of the general tips would be talk to your healthcare provider. So, things like maybe get a checkup, see if you need to supplement with vitamins, talk about your diet. And then, of course, any medications that you're currently taking or may need to take in the future.
Right, because anything someone does to maintain their own health is really going to promote just more successful self-care and ability to have a healthy and more enjoyable reproductive life, hopefully. And that's really important, so if there are concerns, or if somebody has concerns, either partner has a concern about a paternal exposure, it's definitely worth talking to a healthcare provider about that. Sometimes healthcare providers really don't have a lot of information on some of these questions, and if that's the case, our listeners should contact us at MotherToBaby, because we have really specialized information available to us and the time to provide that information that a lot of healthcare providers may not.
Agreed. It's, the world's a changing place and everyone is more overwhelmed than ever before. And sometimes you're at their provider and your provider is wonderful and has tons of information at their fingertips and you forgot because you had a million other things to do that day and that question just slipped your mind. Or, you want to talk through it again. You want to talk to someone else about the same thing you've already talked about with your provider. That is exactly what MotherToBaby is here to do, just to provide whatever information that we can find based on the data and share it.
And sometimes it's really just kind of unwinding or unraveling what the doctor said. The doctor may provide a short message, but somebody just needs a little more clarity on what that really means. And that's something I find I do quite a lot, either with paternal or maternal exposures or exposures related to breastfeeding.
Agreed. Okay, so Mark, we're wrapping up for the show, but again, thank you so much for being with us. And what is the final message you would like to leave our listeners with?
Well, I'm not 100% sure how final is, but I just wanted to go back to the question that you shared with me that we received from a listener. Are there any known substances or lifestyle choices that affect the sperm and increase chances of birth defects? So just to kind of summarize, exposures men have are not expected to increase the chance for birth defects. Lifestyle choices are important, not just as relates to the effect on pregnancy, but also for the family, because what is really important about any exposure concerns we have is what's going to support a healthy and happy family.
That is excellent and so very, very true. It's one of those things where very often people don't think about it until they hear someone else say it. So extra special thanks to our listener who contacted us with this question. I mean, we get them all the time, but someone said, hey, now you got to put it on the podcast. And it could be the same thing. You can have a question and, if you don't want to ask it on air, that is no problem. I'll ask it on air for you. We'll find an expert and we'll answer it. But if you do want to be on the show, we would love to have you also. So please don't forget. We are looking for new topics, new listener questions. We're looking for listeners to talk with us as well. So you're always able to reach us about the podcast by emailing us at contactus@mothertobaby.org. And that is all for this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please don't forget to tune in again in the future, especially when we debut our new season in the upcoming months. Remember that you can find the Mother to Baby podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and however you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And you can also thumb through our older episodes if there's one you've never heard before or something you just have to listen to again. And as always, you are free to contact Mother to Baby. So there's lots of ways to reach us. You can call us at 866-626-6847. Text us at 855-999-3525. And as always, you can reach us on our website at MotherToBaby.org, where we have fact sheets, we have blogs, links to the podcast, and you can also live chat with us through the website as well. So feel free to visit us at any time. This is Chris Stallman signing off, hoping to have you with us again next time. And remember, Mother to Baby is here for you. Take care.
Mother to Baby is a service of the nonprofit organization of Teratology Information Specialists and supported by the Health Resources and Service Administration of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. It's made possible through generous donations from listeners like you. To learn more about Mother to Baby, please visit mothertobaby.org.